The best secrets are those that hide in plain sight. Today, we talk about the secret language of SQL Server, Azure SQL, Azure SQL Database and Managed Instance, Wait Stats.
Everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good.
If this is your first time making it over to Tales from the Field, give us a like and give us a subscribe. You want to check out our channel, every Tuesday we have a community roundtable, and every week we drop an MS Tech Bits about technology specific to Azure. You're watching one of those right now. All right, let's get on to what we're here to talk about. So let's talk about what are wait stats or wait statistics within SQL Server, because this is a secret language you need to know about that's going to help you understand how to diagnose any performance trouble issues that you may be having with your system. So we're going to start out by explaining this. Pretend that you and I are in a room and there's 15 little kids in there and I give them cake and candy and soda. And I'm going to point to you and I'm going to say, if you get that person to listen to you, for 5 minutes straight, you and your whole family win an all-expense paid trip to Disney World. Well, those little kids will be super excited. They're going to all run up to you and they're going to be jumping up and down, raising their hand. Listen to me for a second. No, listen to me for a second. And you're a really nice person. You want to listen to all the kids, but you're just overwhelmed. You're bombarded. So you go, I can listen to you for a minute. I can listen to you for a minute. I can listen to you for a minute. Well, that is preemptive scheduling. That's the way that a Windows operating system works. For example, right now, I'm running Camtasia making this video. I've got SSMS going. I've got a browser window. I've got email. I've got Teams. I've got Spotify. I've got all these things going on my system right now. My Windows OS is going, I can listen to you for a second. I can listen to you for a second. I can listen to you for a second. Now, what we need to do is we need to get those children to line up in a nice, neat, mannerly line. How to do that is beyond the scope of this video. I have no idea. No idea whatsoever. But we get them all nice, neat, in line. Now they come to you one at a time and they tell you what's on their little mind. They go, they have to fetch something from their little buffer pool, from their memory to be able to tell you their story. They get out of line and they wait. Now, this process that I've described to you, this is the children are queries. You are a CPU or a scheduler. And they are coming up to you, asking for your time so that way they can run. When they get out of line and they wait, they accumulate a wait stat or a wait statistic that is specific to the resource that they are waiting on. For example, if they're waiting for memory, there's going to be a wait stat associated with memory. And then they go and they get into the back of the line and they wait politely to come forward. On top of that, there's a quantum of time that each little child can talk to the scheduler, the CPU. And after a moment, they're very nice. They're very kind children. They look behind them and they go, oh, I've been talking for quite a while. I'm going to go to the back of the line. I'm going to let you move forward. That is called cooperative scheduling, cooperative preemptive scheduling. And that's what we have within SQL Server. See, SQL Server has its own operating system and its own operating system. It goes to Windows or it goes to Linux and it's like, hey, I just need CPU and I need memory. And occasionally I need you to fetch something from the disk IOPS and bring it to me. So the wait stats will record these. Now, some of these wait stats are more useful than others, and that's what's really important for us to understand. And the first credit that I want to give to this is Paul Randal. Paul Randal over at SQLskills.com. I'm going to show you his blog right now. It's the classic. Paul does a great explanation, diving deep into the weeds. Go check it out and read it. The link is in the description. The script that Paul has is really the first script that was super useful that was out by the community. And Paul's organization of the script is used in many different places. I'll be using this today, and I've got a GitHub repository, but I've made some slight changes. I don't want to just tell you about this. Let's head over to SSMS, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so here we are in SSMS, and I'm looking at SQL Server Management Studio, and I've got my Azure SQL database open, and I've also got my Azure SQL Managed Instance open. It's important because I want you to realize that the script we're about to use works just fine on either of them. There's a bit of nuance for each, but we're going to get into that. What we're doing with this script is we're going to be able to look at our databases regardless of where we are and find our wait stats. So I'm on my logical SQL Server, my managed instance, And what you can see, the first thing I do is instead of clearing wait stats, which is sometimes the guidance and sometimes you can't do on PAS, I'm going to create a temp table called wait stats. And I'm actually going to load all of my wait stats up. And so I'm going to run from the top of the script down to line 153. That loads everything because wait stats are a cumulative statistic. They are cumulatively and additionally adding to themselves as counters up until the point in time that you reboot an instance, not very likely on PAS. So I said we don't want to run this until the query workload is completed. I'm going to run this as we're going, and it'll show you this wait stats as they accumulate. But if you're doing some type of performance testing and you want to make sure that you understand what the overall wait stats are for the performance test, so if you make changes, you can see how to interpret them, just wait until the performance load test is over to run this. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm loading the current wait stats into a Delta wait stats table. And this is going to be live. We're going to update this every single time, and we're going to do a comparison against our original. So when I run that, you can see that not a lot of wait stats comes back. So I'm going to kick off this script. I've got almost 200,000 rows in this table. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run this. I'm going to do an iteration of 50 runs. This is on a small general purpose. I've got about 2 cores on this. And when I run this, I immediately come over. Oh, and I'm in master. This is an important note. On an Azure SQL database, you need to be inside the database. On a managed instance or on a local SQL server, you can run this just fine being in master. So let me reset my script. And this is going to be a good example of me showing you exactly how this works. I can reset this and be able to pick this up in progress to be able to determine what's going on. And I don't need to clear any wait stats whatsoever. So I've run this. Let me go ahead and highlight the bottom of this. And let's go ahead and kick this off. And we'll see that my top wait is SOS scheduler yield. And as I refresh this, I can see that the wait count will continue to rise. Oh, and we got another one. We got a page IO latch underscore shared wait stat as well. So let me explain this. An SOS scheduler yield. This is when the kids were in line. They exhausted their quantum of time and they looked behind them over their shoulder. They were polite and they said, oh, you go first. I'm going to the back of the line. When that happens, there's no other scheduler for the query to go to. And so it's sending an SOS that there aren't enough CPUs or schedulers. Now, if I come to the end of the script, one of the things I love about this is Paul and the folks over at SQL Skills, they've got this great wait stats repository. And so if you click on this, you can get the URL and then you can go over to that article on SQLskills.com. And they'll give you a wonderful description. Here's different wait stats. Here's the wait stat you're seeing. Here's what it does. If there's any blogs that they have, posts they've written, the stack dump of what this looks like and the trace. Really, really great stuff. And this is a part of every wait stat. So when you start getting these wait stats and you're trying to go, what does this wait stat actually mean? Use these links to be able to go and get these resources. Okay, so we'll come back over. I'm going to do a refresh. You can see we picked up a couple other wait stats, page IO at shared, WRITELOG. Some of these are going to be indicative of a PAS system and things that are occurring in the background. But by far and away, my number one wait stat is my SOS scheduler yield. It's 99%. So what do I do to fix this? Well, first, I could put more CPUs in place so I could handle this query workload. Because what I need to do is I need to be able to scale this out. I've got more traffic coming into my database than my database can currently handle. Now, if this was a parallel query, I could look at the execution plan. Maybe we're using parallelism and we shouldn't be. Maybe we can change the max stop or the threshold for parallelism costs. So that way we can make it be a serial plan, but we'd also want to understand what are the performance impacts of that. So now I'm going to stop that query and then I'm going to clear it out. There's our wait stats. I can see SOS scheduler at the top, but the nice thing is because we're going to do this delta, I'm going to reset this. And then we're going to do another run to be able to show you another wait type. This one, I'm going to use the AdventureWorks. Well, I'm going to stay in the Spider-Man database. I'm going to use AdventureWorks over on Managed Instance. I'm going to drop my table if it exists and create it. Simple table, integer, char key of our char key. I'm going to set no countdown and I'm going to insert the default values, 70,000 rows of these. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to execute this. When I come over and I look at my wait stats, I can immediately see 2 wait stats jump up to the top, but by far and away, there's one in particular, WRITELOG wait stats. WRITELOG wait stats occur when I am very heavily writing something to the transaction log. And this is indicative of this workload. We're doing a ton of inserts. I'm inserting data over and over again. The page/IO shared, it occurs as we're looking to read new objects into memory. We require a page latch to be taken in memory. So this can be a memory wait stat. This also could be a disk wait stat. The wait stats are going to be our top line wait stat. And then we want to dive a little bit further. But I can see by far and away, this is my number one. So what should I do in this situation? Well, I probably need to go to business critical. Business critical is going to give me an optimized pathway. And if this is indicative of my behavior and I want to speed up these writes, that's what I need to do to be able to speed this up in this case. And that's what this is telling me. I'm waiting on being able to get this data written to the database because I've got WRITELOG wait stats that are occurring. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this script. And now what I want to do is I want to change this over and I want to go over to my SQL Manage instance. And I want to show that this is the exact same type of thing that we can get and that this script works on both of these PaaS services. There's a couple wait stats I excluded specifically to be able to make that work, but I also have that in the comments of the script. So now that I've changed where this is, one of the key things to remember in Manage Instance, just like in a regular SQL Server, I don't have to go to the database like I do for Azure SQL Database. I can do this directly from master. So I'm going to reset my script so that way I can get my wait stats associated with my Manage Instance. And let's go ahead and let's run this just so we can see that the temp table is populated and we can see what the wait stats are. It's good. Now we're going to do our delta run, and this should clear things out almost completely. Yeah, there we go. So now let's go over and let's execute our log, let's execute our script to be able to get our WRITELOG wait stat. I'm going to do my no count on, same exact thing. And right away, boom, I can see that WRITELOG, my number one wait stat. Now, we did a couple different things to be able to fix this in a previous video on general purpose. Go check that out so you can see how to be able to make your general purpose faster. But we can extend the log file. We could also take this and we could put this into an in-memory table if we need to, or we could go to business critical to be able to optimize this pathway channel. We've got a couple different options that we could take to be able to get past this WRITELOG stat. But again, the main thing to keep in mind is because of the workload that we're doing, if this is the workload we consistently need to run, SQL Server is telling us this is what I'm waiting on. And this is where my bottleneck is essentially. And in order to go faster, we've got to alleviate the bottleneck that we have in place right now. Now, I'm headed over to my GitHub page, and I just wanted to show you, this is my repository, SQL builds, SQL scripts, and then there's a wait stat script. Again, there's an attribution to Paul, so if you don't go check out his blog from the link in the comments or in the description, you've got another opportunity in the script. Go get this script. It's yours to use. There's something absolutely critical that I want to make sure that I cover. I've alluded to it a little bit so far, but on a finely tuned system, wait stats are indicative of your workload. There will be a point in time where these wait stats help you indicate if some aberration, some crazy new behavior has occurred that you need to begin going, what is causing that wait stat and how can I correlate it? The great news, Query Data Store actually has wait stats, and we can use that to be able to correspond that to find different queries and execution plans and things of that nature. So a lot of great stuff out there that we can use, but wait stats are the key to really understanding that SQL language within SQL Server to know exactly what you are waiting on. All right, you know what we like to do. Let's keep this conversation going in the comments below. Did you like what you saw? Anything that you want to see next time? We'd love to hear from you. Please sound off. Thank you so much for joining us again. I'm Bradley Ball from Tales from the Field. Hope you have a great day out.
Today's gonna be a good day.